Probably one of the biggest questions that I get is how do I know that my employer might be willing to settle? And how do I settle with my employer? Like, how do I maximize my chances? And the answer is kind of easy and kind of hard. I'll skip to the hard part. The hard part is that employers are people. And people are very hard to predict. And so there's no easy way to know if your employer is likely to settle or thinking about settling if you have a dispute with them. It's just as varied and strange as people are. However, there are some things that you can do to massively increase your chances of bringing your employer to the negotiating table and actually successfully negotiating. There are three things. The first thing is that you actually have evidence to prove whatever it is that you have talked about. And before you skip away, and I'm like, no, don't have that, don't, next. Evidence is your own account of what happened, especially if you wrote it down afterwards. So like if you had a scary meeting and something really sus happened and you just write it down and say, this is what happened, here's the who, what, when, where, that is evidence. So we call that contemporaneous notes when you kind of write it down as quickly as possible in the moment, contemporaneously. And the Valo platform is free to do that because it's so important. So that's step one, just write it down. You have evidence. You're already in a better position. The second thing that will put you in a much better position is if you have identified a legal element to your problem and you understand what that could be in tribunal. So for example, if you have, let's say you said to your boss, I don't think that this is fair the way you're treating me now that I'm back from maternity leave, for example. And let's say that your boss then said, well, you're a problem maker, so I'm not gonna put you up for promotion. Then there is a legal term for that as a claim. That could be victimization. That is the specific legal term for that. And if you know that that is the term, then you have instantly got so much more power, because once you know the term, you can communicate effectively with the tribunal, you can communicate with the lawyers about it, and they know that you know what your legal rights are. And the third thing that puts you in a very strong negotiating position is when you can connect the two. So every legal claim that goes to tribunal has something called legal tests. So let's take victimization, that example I just gave you. There are 3 tests for victimization. And when I say tests, I mean when the judge sits down after everybody's said what happened and everything else, when the judge sits down and says, do I think that this was victimization? They are going to apply 3 tests. The first one is, did the person perform what is called a protected act? So did they complain about discrimination in some way, orally, written, whatever? The second one is, did they suffer a detriment after that? And in this case, it was like, I will not put you forward for a promotion. And the third test is, were those two things linked? Was the detriment because of the protected act? And in this case, the boss said, you're a troublemaker, I'm not going to put you forward for this. So the boss, in this case, linked those two things together. And because you wrote down that the boss said that, that's evidence. And because you know what the tests are, then you can say to the employer, look, I have a clear victimization claim. I have the evidence to back it up. I know how this will be evaluated in the tribunal, and I'm confident that I have a good shot of winning here. Would you like to discuss settlement negotiations? That is so different from saying, you have treated me unfairly and I want to settle. Do you see the difference? So that's the 3 things. Have the evidence, which is just writing things down, understand the claims, and understand the legal tests, which brings those 2 things together. That is how you get yourself into a strong position to settle. I can't guarantee that the employer will be willing to do it, but I can guarantee that that will put you in a much better position to do it. And if you're like, how do I get the claims? Well, how do I do that? We have a product for you that will do that. It's called Case Assessment. It's £149 and you will get a report of the claims that you think it might be. And we will go through each one and say, yes, no, because it can be multiple claims, and we will explain why. And you will get a final report after an hour-long call with one of our legal experts. I hope that helps.